Welcome everyone to another episode of Cannabis Marketing Live. I am your host, Jake Litke. I'm the CEO at MediaGel, and today we have Hannah O'Brien from Ectray, which it took me a while to get to pronounce correctly, but I think I've got it. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah, and now you won't forget it.
Now
It's
I
a
won't
super
forget it.
weird word. It is Gaelic for a hero's journey.
Perfect.
And sometimes I wonder if it's a coincidence that I work for Dennis O'Malley because I think he only hires people with apostrophes in his name.
Yeah, it does seem that way, but I
Yeah.
mean, that's one way to get a job. So
Yeah, totally. Right.
exactly. Well, Hannah is a principal at Ectray, as I said, and Ectray helps cannabis companies in a variety of manners across operations, marketing, everything else. You are currently deeply engaged with Navarro Farms in Missouri,
That's
as
right.
well as Infused, which is in multiple states and it's a brand, and we'll get into each of those. We are going to be talking about merchandising today, and we had Dennis on a couple months ago, and
Hmm.
we talked about a lot of things. I learned a lot from that conversation. Dennis is obviously extremely knowledgeable, so it must be nice to work with him.
Yes.
Um, and he did mention merchandising when we got to kind of like top things that a dispensary
Hmm.
can do. And he mentioned that as number one. I think there's some confusion around what merchandising means, which we will get into today. Um, Before we get started, though, Hannah, the first thing I always like to talk to people about is how they ended up in the cannabis industry, and what you've been doing in the cannabis industry.
Okay. I've been in the cannabis industry since 2016, and I moved to San Francisco in 2015. So just after Colorado and Oregon went rec, and California was obviously having a thriving medical market, and I was selling used cars online at a tech startup, nerding out on data, trying to solve revenue issues through operational efficiencies. So it was tech meets operations. And in the Bay, there were a few cannabis tech companies. I was smoking a lot of weed and nerding out on all the different branding that was coming out. And I was looking to continue my data revenue ops path by way of cannabis. And so I met the team at Confident Cannabis. That was a YC combinator out of Stanford Business School, the founders there. And I was there for almost 3 years and did everything from tech to growth operations to managing wholesale teams and doing the marketing. So I was kind of the only non-tech official like software engineer there. And then yes, there went to distributors, went to brands, and then this is year 4 of me consulting and working with companies on my own. So I have experience in almost every market. Depending on the quarter, I might be more engulfed in a certain market than others. These days, it's very New York, Missouri, a little bit of Arizona, a little bit of the southern states as well. Not as much California anymore.
Well, some people might be happy about that. Just in terms of
Yes.
California's difficult market.
Yes.
I've heard recently Missouri's been a hot topic
Yeah.
and across a lot of conversations. It came up a lot during discounting conversations we were having,
Yes.
and how Missouri has the lowest discount rate of any state.
Yeah.
Um, because I guess there's less market pressure, or maybe we can start there since I just brought it up.
Yeah. Missouri's interesting. It is vertical, and I think there's about 6 million people. And there are around 215 dispensary locations across the state, mostly concentrated in like the St. Louis, Kansas City area, some sprinkled within Columbia and Springfield, and some of the tourist areas like Lake of the Ozarks. The half of them are generally owned by a big MSO, Good Day Farms. So there's that you have working against you. It's interesting that they have um, the lowest discount in the market. I think that's probably going to change. I think with some of the stricter packaging regulations that Missouri has and some of the stricter marketing and advertising regulations they have, it doesn't really give these brands a lot of room to breathe and move and show themselves for whom they are. I work with a brand, Old Pal in Missouri, that obviously is a testament to phenomenal marketing and branding, and they have a wonderful point of view. They've got a wonderful digital presence, and their packaging is wonderful. And you see them in Missouri, and they have to take those limitations on from expressing who they really are. I think Missouri is kind of like a small market. There aren't that many players because so many people, it's concentrated among these groups. And maybe it's not that high of a discount percentage because of the verticality of the market, right? Maybe these stores are able to move through their own products efficiently. Um, and they're generally is like the same type of demographic almost everywhere you go. So it's interesting, like there hasn't been so much price compression on the CPG customer facing side of things. There's been a little bit on the wholesale side with like distillate sales and full flower. But like over the last 2 years, like vapes have pretty much stayed around that $44. Eighths of flour have pretty much stayed around that $40. I will say there's a big miss on like true product differentiation that could really attract all parts of a customer or a certain demographic. There's no real, there, in my opinion, there's not true premium in Missouri. It's mostly mid shelf and economic buys in general. So maybe they've just honed in on exactly who their customer is and really haven't strayed too far away from it. But I actually think that's starting to hurt them in the long run, right? Because you do have these other players coming into the market. It's not really like Steezy's leaving, which is an interesting phenomenon. I think that's probably some lawsuit pressure, but I also think Missouri does a really, for better or for worse, advocates for their own internal brands more so. So Jeter just entered the market, so we'll see how they fare this year as well. They come in and make a splash for sure. And then Rove, that's not a Missouri brand, and they are the number one brand in the state. They continue to just crush it. They do a great
Yeah.
job.
Well, with the discount numbers, I think the highest is like Washington, followed by California. It's like the average percentage off of a SKU, right?
Right.
So Missouri last, I mean, this was 6 months ago and things do change quickly, was around 15%, whereas
Yeah, that sounds, yeah. I
Washington's like
think
40%.
Yeah,
So,
totally. And some of the things that I experience also is I think the third party brand communication with retailers could be improved, right? I think again the vertical stores that have their own brands to sell, maybe they can get by and get that higher velocity and retain their AOV by only discounting that average like 10 to 15%. Oftentimes I have to reach out to people as a brand and be like, yo, I will meet you halfway. Like we can move the needle. I can afford to go deeper if pricing and discounting is the name of the game for that strategy or for that store or for that product line, right? So I agree. I often push for like, go deeper, go 20, 30, 40. In California specifically, our the store that I used to help run in San Francisco, nobody would care unless the discount was like 25% or higher. Like
yeah.
that's the level we were at in California. 30%, and then we would usually split 15-15 with the brand and the retailer.
Yeah, we see that with advertising too when running campaigns, just on the engagement on the creative itself. Like
Yes,
what does the creative say? 15% does not do the same thing as 30 or 35% when it's listed
right.
in the ad itself, just from a pure click-through perspective, right?
Yeah.
Um, so
I think that mirrors non-cannabis shopping experiences as well, right?
yeah.
I think it's seasonal, dependent on how low you want to go. Obviously, we're coming up on our favorite season of 420, and so I am seeing I'm doing free weed for a year for people. I'm doing big doorbusters. I'm like first 100 customers get free product. I'm giving ounces away to the bud tenders that sell the most. Like there's one thing for sure: Missouri does not have a shortage of cannabis. So I would like to see them play more into that
Mhm.
as a tactic too.
Yeah, and this will play right into merchandising. I'm looking at it from the angle
Yes,
of the ads right now, but the
yes,
other kind of trick you can do sometimes is giving away a free product sometimes it works better than a lower discount, even if the net discount is actually less, right? So you could have a scenario
Yes.
where buy this product, get this other product free. The actual net margin discount for the retailer actually could be 15% total
Right.
instead of a
Right.
20% discount that wasn't as compelling, right?
Correct. Right.
So,
Totally. Completely agree.
yeah.
Um, and that's just retail experience, right? And I think we'll get into it when we talk about the power of merchandising and displays and ads and digital presence as well. But really thinking holistically about the costs that are going into the sale and what that ROI really looks like. And knowing how to structure everything so that it like is clearly intentional, right? I'm doing a deal for a reason. I should have a benchmark for that deal. I should know what the goal of that deal is. I should measure how successful that deal is. When I was reading the questions, there was something about like what is something that stores are not doing well. I think pop-ups are continuously not done effectively. There should be pre-work that happens around emails and text messages through your loyalty programs like Spring Big or Alpine IQ or your point of sale. There should be the pop up should happen at a very specific time with the highest foot traffic. It should be clearly set up front and center. There should be an associated deal. Your menu should be stocked with the products that the brand is promoting. All of these things, usually like one or two of those things is happening at the store level, right? And then you should have a goal. Like I always tell my sales reps, like if you didn't sell twice as many units with you being there as a day that you're not there, then that wasn't a successful pop up.
Yeah. Well, let's circle back to maybe where we should have started,
Yeah.
but I kind of went into a tangent immediately. Merchandising. Okay,
Yeah.
merchandising, as I kind of mentioned earlier, it is defined differently in different people's heads, right? As in terms of what does that
Yes.
mean exactly? So let's start with how you define merchandising, what the disciplines are inside of that bucket.
When I think of merchandising, my brain immediately includes digital and physical. So I think it needs to be this holistic um, discipline or activation for your store branding to be very similar in store and online. And I get that every market is different and we have some regulation obstacles and you can't necessarily set up your store the way you'd like to or the stores that you like to shop at like a grocery store or a convenience store like you are going to have those limitations. But to me, merchandising is everything from signage to the way your store flows, how you're choosing to set up your store in terms of like moments or lifestyles or effects, like go here for sleep, go here to feel good, go here to be creative, or maybe you want to be category specific, go here for flour, edibles, concentrates, beverages. Some people like to set it up by brand. I think that depends. Like I have a brand that has one product line, right? And I would much rather see, and it's our best selling product, but it's one product line. I'd much rather see that displayed with like bundles and moments that mirror lifestyles. I think that you are already tapping in to the funnel of how somebody shops, whether they're a first time purchaser or a repeat purchaser, and your store and your online experience should govern that. Stick to it, test it, change as needed, right? So yeah, so packaging, displays, signage, the general point of view of your store and online experience, right? Are you a wellness shop? Are you a bougie high end shop? Are you a local strip mall, blue collar worker shop, right? Like figure out your vibe and then lean on brands to kind of complete the picture of how they're setting up their products to sell. So yeah, I don't think it's just like a brand sign or another metal or neon sign hanging on the wall. I think that's fun and it could have a place in a moment, but I think merchandising, just like anything, needs to drive sales and there has to be an ROI associated with it. And the more you connect the dots. So the same way like your online menu might have staff picks, might have new products, might have your sales for the week. Your store should emulate that, right? I should see staff picks in the store. I should see the new products for the week. I should see what things are on promotion. Um, Not because it's important for necessarily the online in-store similarities, but it's important for the business, again, to kind of pick a path on how you're driving new customer acquisition, customer retention, and using that as a bit of a template. And then again, measuring the success of that, right? If your new products that you're excited about to put online or to put on your menu have the lowest adoption rate, maybe you try something new where you have a new products table in your store, you have a new product section on your website, and you see if there's a lift in the next 30 to 60 days around the new products that you bring on. Things like that.
Yeah.
So it is a big category, but it's not as simple as like table tents and neon signs. To me, merchandising is the physical embodiment of helping drive customers to decisions about what they're going to buy and hopefully increasing basket size and revenue.
And have you seen, in your experience, examples where you have changed from a like, okay, we're going to organize a store by brand versus we're going to organize a store by product versus we're going to organize it by cost basis or the different ways that you can categorize things because this does have a physical implication, right? And you run
Yes,
into situations where
totally.
you can't always slice things up into neat buckets because you may have a handful of products that like they're not big enough to have their own shelf, so you have to put them
Yeah,
in with something else.
right.
Have you run real world examples of it was in one configuration and you changed it to a different configuration and you saw an impact in sales or basket size, either positive or negative?
Yes, many times. Um, I have like three, if I remember, that are like coming to mind. I'd say the first thing that I always see increase basket size and is kind of a no-brainer is stuff at the cash register and stuff when you're checking out. The same way you have a candy and magazine aisle at a grocery store, the same way that you go to the Sephora counter and you have to walk through the sample aisle before you check out with your basket, right? I think those are opportunities to just immediately add another item, and it's a fun mixture. It can be like try now or new products or exclusive products, but I think moving a specific brands and product lines to and near in front or at, again, I know not everybody can put products on their store floor. Missouri is one of those. I can't have actual cannabis on the store floor, but in those examples, you can do non-infused edibles. So that's the second thing I would say. So that definitely worked, right? Like as soon as you put stuff at the cash wrap, people are increasing their basket size by throwing some of those items in there. Um, and the second thing is at one store, we moved all the edibles to behind at the counter and behind the counter. So on the sides were like vapes, concentrates, and flour. So that was a category based store. And I moved the edibles, which really was influenced by how kick ass the edible branding was and how edibles were like always in people's carts. Like no matter if you were a flower buyer or a vape buyer or a concentrate buyer, people always have edible questions no matter what. And putting that behind the counter was beautiful. It was fun. It was flashy. It was colorful, and it just continued to increase edible average basket size and edible purchases and cross category purchasing. It's funny. Missouri is like the only market I've ever worked in where edibles are not the number 2 category. It goes flower, vapes, and then like pre-rolls or edibles. It kind of depends on the store. Um, so if you have an edible problem and you want people to try more edibles, they're beautiful. I think the packaging is very beautiful and they're great behind the registers. And then the third thing is like again the bundling. right? Like making the moments very clear to people when they step into the store. Do you like hiking and camping? Well, maybe this summer you should buy these drinks and buy these joints. Like making those very clear moments on the store floor. Um, we had towers of can that I didn't know what to do with, right? And then they looked impressive when they first showed up at the store because they were like these huge towers of can boxes, like a Coca-Cola stand in a grocery store. They weren't moving and they were taking up a shit ton of space. So we took that away and then we paired the can with a flower or a pre-roll as a moment, as a lifestyle moment, as an activity that you can do while you're consuming, and that helped. So I think all of those things had positive impacts. The things that don't are not effective are like what you had mentioned, right? Like you're giving every brand equal space or whatever that means to you, and you're not uh you don't have clear direction or intention around high, medium, and low. Like even in Missouri, when I walk in and it's just packaging on the floor, right? And you see a little brand take up a little space and a little shelf, like why have it at all? Is kind of the question that I would ask. You're either not having good communication with the brand to get all the merch and current packaging, maybe it's new, but like there's just a better way to elevate everything. Otherwise, again, why are you buying it unless you're going to give it its full ability and opportunity to sell?
Yeah. You just mentioned merch, and that brings up a question that I genuinely have no idea how you're going to answer this. It's not something I've really thought about. But when it comes to merch specifically, how have you leveraged that inside of the retail location? You kind of just mentioned that we only have a couple products. Do you actually place merch in and around products, or do you have like
Mm.
merch shelves, or do you sell much merch in the stores you're working in?
I'm not a big fan of of non-cannabis products on the store floor. It's personal. I feel like, each state and each market is, gets lucky or unlucky with how much square footage they get, but sometimes you don't get a lot. And I think it's a big distraction for dispensaries to invest a lot of time and energy in glassware, in devices, in their own swag and their own merch. It's separate inventory that you have to manage, it's separate vendors that you have to manage, it's separate terms. Generally speaking, the swag that you're buying or the merch that you're buying for your store came out of your own mind and you think it's really cool and maybe a couple people buy it, but I generally think those are better for giveaways and they take up store space. um, I think when you have sellable cannabis product coupled with intentional merch in the way of, clear display cases, display stands, signage, we might talk about it, but like even in the state of Missouri where you can't have product on the floor, I wish I could see more battery devices or more non-infused edibles on the floor or an opportunity to unpack the differentiators of these brands other than just their packaging. Packaging is part of merch, I guess. But if you have the luxury of having like a lounge or maybe like a foyer or a room before your actual store floor, that could be a good place to put it. But like no one's paying attention to it because it's usually lower value and it's not really moving the needle for your store. And it's just another thing to sell. So the merch around the product I think needs to be related to the product is probably the most advantageous thing that I would suggest to brands. One of the brands is made this really cool metal tool box, and it's like totally branded. It's fully metal. It's really nice quality. And they have it displayed next to all their concentrates and maybe some dab tools that go along with it, right? To make it more engaging and the customer or the bartender can go over and talk about the brand. They're giving away the toolbox. You can maybe buy the toolbox online. So I think that's really cool and cohesive. Um, I think things like that. But like all the glassware, no. But I think generally when I want to outfit a store with good intentional merch, it's like I'm making decisions about modularity, how lightweight it is, how sustainable it is, how repeatable it is. Are you giving me dab mats? Are you giving me pokers? Are you giving me lighters? Are you giving me papers? Are you giving me rolling trays? Like all of that stuff is good as long as it's displayed right at the store and it doesn't look like a dorm room or a bunch of junk. Like make it look nice. And that kind of goes back to that's on the store's onus to make sure things like lighting. I can't tell you how critical lighting is to make sure that this stuff looks good, and draws people in different directions. Signage, shelving choices, all of that. Yeah. So I would try to stay away from like the gimmicky stuff, and be intentional about like the true activation. It goes back to the product. They're not going to come back and buy more dab tools. They're going to come back and buy more concentrates. So
Yeah, that makes sense. You also mentioned something I haven't seen much of, or maybe I haven't just not noticed, which is non-medicated edibles. Is that,
yeah,
do people sell a fair amount of those?
yeah, I hope no one sells them. I hope they only give them away. And I'm sorry to the manufacturers and the brands that have to spend money on this thing. But like the edibles, like yeah, you have a million edible brands, but if you try 10 different edibles, you're going to have 10 different experiences with the consistency, with the sugar coating, with the sourness, with the size, with the flavor. Like all of these things are your points of value or not. And what a cool opportunity to give people a taste test, right? Um, and I mean, literally 10 years ago, I think Wild was the first one I encountered in Oregon that gave every store really cool, like apothecary jars filled to the brim. All and like 10 of them, sometimes 10 different flavors would be at the store. So I think, yeah, I think edible brands should totally lean into non-infused products at the stores for that sensory moment, a talking moment. It's better if you have more than one, so you can have that comparison and pin them off of each other, right? Um, Again, done correctly, right? Don't just like set it and forget it. Like have a goal. Okay, Juana, if you want to sell 1,000 units this month and we're going to make non-infused samples part of that goal, you need to commit to giving me 5 flavors, maybe 1,000 each. And then the bartenders need to commit to like handing them out at the drive-through, handing them at the pickup window, handing them out like it needs to be something you use. Otherwise it's just trash and it just gets stuck in the storage corner.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's circle back to the alignment of your physical merchandising strategy, whatever that is. You've picked a strategy. You're going to be high end, you're going to be accessible, you're going to be value based, whatever that is, in the store. And then how do you advise people to translate that to their online presence, right? And on our side, we work mostly on the online ordering system because we're doing digital advertising. And there's a natural like click through, right, to the purchase behavior. Um, but also the website is an area that I think it gets not as much attention as it should from a lot of operators because they just say, okay, well, here's my store. I've got Jane or Dutchie or Sweet or whatever it is. And that comes, you load your products in there and then you've got a product grid. Maybe they've put a header on the top of the page, but how do you help people understand the linking those two experiences?
At one of the dispensaries that I help run, online orders can be anywhere from 50 to 60% of our daily revenue. So I think it's very telling. Those are usually the people that know what they want, right? They don't need anyone to talk to. I think there's a few things that I like to mention to dispensaries. Number one, after your age gate, the first thing should be like, I'm buying something. If there are any more links or paths or pages that are preventing me from adding something to my basket, you're doing it wrong. The fewest clicks to get me to purchase something should be your goal of your website. I think the website is also a great place to continue to lean on brands. I think it is a oftentimes a resource problem for the store, right? Stores have a million things to deal with. They've got compliance and traceability and customers and anything and everything that can go awry at a retail store, right? So oftentimes the website just might be a check box of like, okay, I have one. Which is great. If you have a website, you're already better than a lot of people. But I think get rid of your About Us page as the first thing that I see. Again, I'm there to shop. So I would, this is where things where I think stores need to lean on brands. I recommend oftentimes making like a quick one sheeter. Brands should be doing this proactively and giving you everything up front when you pick them up and buy them and teaching you how to sell their brand. But if you need to, creating a one sheeter that says, like, these are the types of assets that I want. And brands should seasonally be sending you, their mobile assets, their hero banners. They should make sure that you have all of the right product images up there. You should make sure your product descriptions are accurate. Your categories are accurate, your weights are accurate. It's very infuriating to me when I'm searching for quarters and your ounces show up, or I'm searching for pre rolls and some, like, just make sure that your categorization is correct in your point of sale. And then I would flow it like you flow your store, right? Like if you're thinking about the funnel of winning a customer, teaching the customer, giving them a trusting experience that's rewarding and gratifying, that makes them want to come back, and then that repeat purchase. It's like, yeah, there's tech things that can be difficult, right? Like recommendation tools are still a little funky and hard to go by. I think anytime you can layer in product reviews and ratings. Again, consistency in cannabis products is another topic, but I think at the same point, like I think having that community buy-in on certain products and is good. So giving people a place to comment and give feedback. Um, I forget where I was saying. Oh, the way the website should flow. So
Yep.
if you're either a first time buyer or a repeat purchaser, like solve that problem immediately. Staff picks followed by new products. Maybe it's stuff that's on sale first. So like the way you set up your site will definitely give a person the impression of like, oh, is this like a bougie store or a budget store? You know, if you're just sale, 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 I kind of get it. Maybe you're a flower heavy store. Maybe you're vertical and you want to highlight the new flower strains that are coming out constantly that you're promoting. So I think it, it, yeah. And then I don't know if there's too many ways I would set up a website differently than how I would set up the store, right? I still want those opportunities. Again, this could be a tech limitation or go talk to your point of sale or your website developer, but like make it easy to be like, hey, you added these three things. Do you want this thing? Online purchases tend to have almost 2x sometimes the average order value for that reason, right? It's very easy to just add things to your cart. So yeah, I would say keeping things current, keeping things seasonal. If you haven't already, I would try to get off the standard website template that point of sales give you, like Dutchy. It is nice because sometimes people are like, they know it and they know how to navigate it. But spend maybe 300 to 500 bucks. Like I spend 500 bucks a month on a killer website designer, developer, to make little changes. I use Dutchy. I have headless. So like maybe it's worth that investment if you think you can drive online purchases that much more.
Yeah, I mean, simply being able to offer intelligent add-ons is going to move the needle for sure.
Yes.
Especially if you can surface things that the customer may not have found in their own browsing, right? The things that are
Yes.
in the sort of digital corner, so to speak. And if you understand your customer purchase behavior and realize that people that buy these products also like these other products, they tend to go
Yeah.
together and reference.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, thinking about you got to nail your search on your menu, right? Like, how are people searching your product? How are they sorting their menus? Like, do you have your searches dialed in by weight, by brand? Is it easy? Like, don't just as frictionless as you can possibly make it. I mean, I tell my sales reps to go to every single website weekly, like engage with their online interface and help them out.
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing I've seen that is confusing from the product description itself is multi-unit packs, right? And people getting confused about putting the total gram weight or the total milligrams of the product itself, but not necessarily saying what the per unit is or per item.
Yes,
So like edibles, they're like, oh, this is 100 milligrams of THC, but not saying that it's 5 per unit because that's important for some people. Like
yes,
some people do not want more than 5 milligrams per unit. And if you give them more, then that creates friction for them because they're going to have to go cut it up into pieces or whatever.
that's a really
Um,
good point.
and
Yeah,
it's easy to forget when you're running the store because you're kind of pricing everything on milligrams. Like, okay, there's this much in this one, this much in that one. But
yeah.
or beverages is another really important one. Do the cans
Beverages, I
have
was going to
5 or 10
say,
in each? Is it a four
yeah.
pack? Is it a six pack? Right?
Yeah, I think Missouri, the beverage market, California's beverage market is a little bit more robust. Obviously, you've been around longer and there's not as much restriction, but the beverage market in Missouri is like, I think, less than 1%. So you have an education problem, I think. And anytime you send a product, like that should be your product description. Like, hey, pour this out in the cap. A cap full is 5 milligrams or whatever it might be. Yeah, I think you make a really good point there. And another thing that's hard to manage is actually updating your menus with true strain information, right? I think that is hard to keep up. Like, if you're changing from Gorilla Milk to LCD, um, just having a couple of sentences about that experience. I know that some markets can't even say indica sativa hybrid. Kind of, thank God. Like, aren't we over that? But um, that I think will improve the sell through. Like, I do not buy flour online unless I see a picture of the nug, which is logistically annoying, and I know that. Um, but again, like lean on the brands to give you this information, knowing that that is the sensory visual thing that someone's seeing online. The picture of the goopy concentrate. Some of those aficionados, like they're like, that's batter, that's butter, that ain't sugar. Like, if it says sugar and it looks like batter, that might impact the buying decision. The color of the vape, right? Like, all these things, like, your images are very powerful, I think, and just the brand logo, lame.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. All right, let's move. Oh, also for those of you here today that are in the Zoom experience, there is a Q&A thing. If you want to type in some questions for Hannah, please feel free to do so. If you're on LinkedIn or YouTube, I can't see those, but if you post questions there, we'll follow up on those as well. Um, but let's move on to an area which is definitely not my point of expertise, but I think is part of yours, which is the people involved and how you're orchestrating the human presence and the experience and discovery process related to the merchandising in the store.
In terms of how we're interacting with customers.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah, how you're training or informing your staff on how
Yeah.
they should be interacting with customers, specifically as it pertains to the way the store is laid out, what's
Yes.
in it, and how you bring people through that.
Yes. Okay, cool. Um, Again, I believe in goal setting and metric tracking and reporting out. And I believe in training your bud tenders, regardless of how experienced they are in retail metrics. The idea that if we make more money, you might make more money. And let it, a bud tender is a salesperson on the sales floor. Um, so I would start there. I mean, I would make sure that I'm doing monthly sales trainings where people are bringing up their objections. We're going through that in training. I would make sure that brands, you don't necessarily have to physically come to the store and train it, but like it is up to you to make sure you are teaching my budtenders on how to sell your product in the most effective way. And with that, I would say like simpler is better always, like giving people clear catchphrases, tags, words to associate your brand with is really important. I think making sure that there's transparency with your budtenders on what your new customer acquisition rate is and what your return customer acquisition or return customer rate is, and rewarding them on both of those, like grow your new customers, grow your repeat purchase rate, right? I think those are easy things to keep in the back of your mind as you're engaging with people when they walk in the store. And to that end, it's like if you have somebody that's there for the first time, maybe you take them to the staff picks table. Maybe you take them to the best sellers table. If it's somebody that's been there again and again, maybe you take them to the staff picks table, and then you take them to the new products table so that you can upsell them a little bit more. Um, I think sometimes I some of the failings I've seen with in-store merchandising and in-store experiences, iPads. I haven't seen anybody really like crush it on the iPad game, whether the iPad is there for just like a menu, or it's a product recommendation tool, or it's an interactive tool where you can look more at the nugs, or it's a sensory tool. Like I haven't seen anybody really crush that. So like forget it if it's not working, and don't put that in between you and the customer. Just talk to them like a human being. And then, yeah, I think you need to change your sales script depending on who you're talking to, right? Like if a guy in a suit walks in, maybe we're not using words like dank, fire, and legit. Maybe you are, but like ask a few qualifying questions before you jump into that, right? Um, I think it's important to make sure that you are engaged. Like this is serious competition. Like I am literally fighting to keep every single customer that comes in. And like I teach the bartenders, this is a battle. Like there is a dispensary over there. There's one that's going to pop up over there in 3 months. Like your goal, weed is weed, in my opinion. They're buying from you. Make them come back to hang out with you and buy from you for a reason. And then obviously you do have turnover in the bartender world, but oftentimes they're going to another dispensary anyway. So I think being transparent with again those metrics and those KPIs around new customer acquisition, customer retention, is an indicator of how healthy your store is. And then as it relates back to merchandising too, like give them something to talk about. Like if you as a buyer or purchaser or an inventory manager are buying shit or buying on consignment or buying expired goods, like, or whatever it is that's not setting your store up to succeed, or you're not clearly communicating to your bud tenders your purchasing strategy and your sales strategy, well, then how do you think they're going to execute on the store floor, right? So if you're leaning into one direction or one brand or one category, or trying something new, like that's on you to make sure you are communicating the strategy to your bud tender so that they can go out there and win business and increase basket size.
Yeah, that all makes sense. Now, on the retention front, which is something that we focus on pretty heavily because that's really
Hmm.
where you're going to get the most. I mean, that is where you should get most of your revenue, and it's the best revenue to keep.
Hmm.
Um, how do you talk to your staff, your bartender staff, with having a mind towards they're not just trying to get this person to buy X product today or whatever you're trying to push or whatever's on sale or whatever, and really think about providing an experience that goes after they leave, that they come back, right?
Yeah. I think there's a few things that are paramount. Number one, get your loyalty program down, right? Um, Something that's easy for you to manage, something that's easy for the customer to manage. The biggest issues I see with loyalty programs are often point of sale failings of not being very clear and easy for the user to use. And then the other issue is like people don't know how many points they have. So they acquire all these points and then they never use those points. So you're losing out on that repeat purchase or that excitement that comes with, tapping into your bank of points.
Yeah.
Your bartenders need to be trained on how to make sure that your loyalty program is being executed well. Signage should be everywhere. Your website should have it, in store should have it. It should be very simple one sheeters. Maybe that's your iPad. Um, so that needs to be worked into the conversation, especially for repeat purchasers. And then also, like another conversation, if we have time, is making your loyalty program sticky at all. Like, I can't tell you how many times I'll get sent text messages of just an image with no link, no deal, just a pretty image. I'm like, that's not working. You missed the mark. Make sure there's a call to action, make sure there's a link, make sure that and make sure you're looking at the results. The next thing is, I would say, like I said earlier, they're coming back because of you, hopefully. So you're giving them this very intentional, trusting, fun experience, right? You're selling them what they need now while already priming them for that reorder. Cool, try this. Let me know how it goes in a week. Make sure you're coming back and trying this product next. Or if you like this, you'll like this. Already priming them for what's to come and getting them back in the store to get that second product. That happens a lot too when people have like only $20 to spend. Okay, cool. This week you're going to try this. Next week you're going to try this, right? With limited budgets. I think that's a great way because those people matter. And maybe one day they'll come back with $40 or bring a friend or whatever. Um, so I think there's that. So loyalty programs, priming the customer for their second purchase while they're currently there. What was your question?
We're just asking
The
about
retention. Oh, the
about
retention
getting
rate.
people
Yeah.
the having a mindset of retention in the customer
Yes. And
experience.
then again, like the store flow and the online flow, right? I think asking those qualifying questions up front about like why you're in the store today, what are you looking for, and then bringing them over to the part of the store that reflects some of those purchases, right? Again, it's all about the intentionality of the feeling of the vibes
Yeah.
um of how that store is flowing.
Well, that's a perfect segue into a question we have from Judy, which is, what are your thoughts on guided selling on the sales floor? So going out to meet the customer where they
Hmm.
are versus the bud tender behind the counter educating the consumer. What have you seen in your experience one way or the other?
Um, I think both are good. Again, it kind of depends on what market you're in. Sometimes you have to have like an escort with you, walking you through, like you're in the security waiting room, somebody comes and meets you and takes you on the store floor and walks you around. And then sometimes you walk into a store floor, like I see this happen in California quite a lot actually, and there aren't products on the floor. They're all in the glass cases, and then the bud tender will like flag you over to go talk to them behind the counter. So it's a little bit of a hybrid approach. I like it when people are on, anytime someone's on the store floor engaging with the customer is fabulous. You can read the room, you can trust somebody. If you're like, I don't want to talk to somebody today, like you don't have to help them, right? I'm that way when I go shopping for clothes. Don't freaking talk to me. I know what I want. But I think even if people don't know what they want, making sure you're like, oh, have you seen our new products this week? Or have you checked out our staff picks table and walking them over there and seeing if they have any follow up questions. Sometimes, like, I like the people on the store floor when there's product on the floor. Like, that to me goes hand in hand. Um, even even when you have product like in the vault or behind the cash wraps and it's legally not allowed on the store floor, that's where I think you see a huge disconnect of like, okay, why are you employing this bartender if you're not even taking advantage of your store floor and leveraging that to guide your customer through a transaction, right? Like, don't just sit there and talk to me with like packaging displays. Like, that's where you need to be like, okay, well, what is even the little micro funnel in my store and how am I setting that up? Like, as a path, as a trail to guide them to that decision. And that's where I think the intentional merchandising, the right displays, the right call to action that is pushing people. And the bartender should be trained on, oh, let me go over and show you this like super cool new dab kit and this camping kit that so and so put together this summer, right? Like, obviously, that's a talking moment on the store floor. So, yeah, I would say um, if you have the resources and the budget to have someone on the store floor and it makes sense and you're utilizing it correctly and having somebody behind the counter, both would be my recommendation.
Both is ideal. All right. Mercedes has a question which is related to positioning best-selling products within the store. And do you
Yeah.
put them at the back of the store, like
Yeah.
the same way the grocery store puts things in the back of the store?
Yes.
You have to walk through to get to what you want.
Yes. Yes. I have the same question about like products that don't sell well in the store. Like, do you put the best selling or do you put the worst selling, most expensive products like front and center, hoping that those move? I don't know. I think you have to save space in your store for your highest velocity products. So yeah, like your best selling, best adoption rate products, I think should be front and center, right? Like it's kind of the 80-20 rule in my mind. And honing in on your best selling products is also a bit of art versus science, right? Like and it could be a lie. You could lie. You could say this is our best selling product when it's not, right? I've totally done that. Because all your budtenders love it. Maybe you've sold it at another store where it crushes, like it's not built on nothing, but you feel like it's not getting the attention it deserves. So maybe you try a merchandising or display tactic in that regard. But yeah, I would give most of your space to the best selling product, and making those moments on the periphery for a lot of the other stuff that might be up and coming, because maybe the best-selling stuff doesn't need all of the attention of the bud tenders, of the sales floor, of engagement. Maybe you know that that's going to sell itself in some way, and then you can spend more time with people on those other like intentional moments throughout the store that you might build out by effect or by category. But yeah, I wrestle with this because even when I'm thinking from a wholesaler, and I have new products, right? And I don't necessarily want to discount my new products, but I want the buyers to buy my new products, and I don't want the pressure on them to feel like they have to push through this new product that's that might be higher risk to them.
Mm.
So I actually do most of the time end up discounting new products for the first couple of purchases, letting them price it how like a normal price so they can retain their margin and it's a little less risky for them. So if I'm selling something for $40, I'll sell it to the store for $30, but they should still sell it for $80 kind of thing. And then we can kind of back down from there to a right price point for that store if that's the name of the game.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And the other thing about dispensaries is they're usually small, not all of them, but and the
Mm-hmm.
visual layout isn't linear necessarily. It's not like you are walking down this hallway to get to the end. So you kind of have to take into account the shape of the store. And in some ways, it's more about like the visual path that someone's going to scan. Because
Yeah.
in some stores, there's not a lot of walking to even be done, right?
Correct.
So
You're there.
you're
You're there in a
there.
little galley kitchen kind of thing. For the bigger stores, I love hang signs from the ceiling. Again, I just go back to like a grocery store in the aisles, like over here, like it's like there's so much stuff on the floor. Maybe there's too much noise, whatever it is. But I like hanging signs in some of the bigger stores because your eyes are a little higher. I can immediately see if it's high on the wall too, but the hanging signs are a little bit more like farmers markety and a little bit more approachable. So I like to mention that to people as well, and stuff like that. That is the store's theme, brand, and point of view, right? Like you can take it upon yourself to make your hanging signs more in line with your store's branding versus all of the individual brands that are competing for merch and display space. One thing I really don't like, I understand why people do it, but I really don't recommend doing this, is I've seen stores neutralize the branding of every product that they sell, third party and in house, take it almost all away and just use standard template brand and product descriptions in their entire store. So it's like one monotonous color of like the same thing everywhere. that's in my opinion too far. You've lost the differentiation. One of the key differentiating factors of different products and categories in your store when you neutralize it all to be more like you. I would recommend not doing that because then I don't know what to buy or why to buy it. It all just and it's third party brands too, right? Like I get it if you're doing it for your own first party brands, but to neutralize everything to make it look like you made it, I think is a risky move.
Do you think anyone ever does that specifically because they're trying to push people towards their first party brand by diminishing the third party brands?
100%. Or it could be in good faith of like giving everybody this equal playing field and truly hoping that the customer makes a decision based on the experience with that product. So it is taking one of the factors away and limiting. I think it just limits the ability for people to make a fair decision for themselves on the product. And I also just think it looks bad. Like I don't trust stores, to be honest, to always execute and do a good job on merchandising, display, and design. And so if your little cards have typos and you cut it in the back when you were like dabbing, I'm like, this looks like shit.
Yeah, it's not a recipe for success.
Ask me how
Um,
I really feel.
yeah, don't hold back here. So, all right, well, we're just about up on time. We got a couple
Okay.
minutes left. What are some things that you kind of came here to talk about that I may not have brought up that we could address here at the tail end?
I think I would recap by saying retail is really hard. And I admire every single person that is in the retail vertical. It is the moment where the rubber hits the road and you have a lot of things fighting against you, and you're kind of like the goalie, like at the end of the field where you're getting stuck with shit, right? No matter what it is. So I think I would say, like, yeah, there's obviously a best in class way to do things that might prove to be successful, but I don't discount the fact that that can be really hard to get to for a variety of reasons: legality, money, resources, time, energy, market dynamics. Like, there's a lot of things working against neighborhoods, location. Like, we didn't even talk about that. Um, so I would, if there was like a message to leave with anybody who is working in retail, I always would say like pick a few things to measure. And I think it's relaxing to think of a few things and it's more in control. So like I like making sure that like no matter what, everything costs money and time. So if you kind of go back to the basics of like this sign costs me money, will it help me move this product? Like I get that a lot of like impact analyses done around marketing and merch and displays can be opaque and hard and indirect, but I think if you are comfortable with your baseline and you're intimately familiar with what your baseline of revenue looks like, then it should be easy to like pick 3 or 5 things that are additive to your daily business that you can then measure in like 30, 60, 90-day increments. Don't burn yourself out by the noise because there's just so much noise. So the retention rates, the new customer acquisition rates, the total units per day sold, I think is a great indicator. Average basket size, obviously. And then the last thing I'll say is lean on the brands. Like make those brands do the heavy lifting whenever possible. And I'm a brand too, but like it should be we should be working together to make more money, or why are we working together at all?
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for your time. I did have one
Thank
last thing
you.
I wanted to
Yeah.
touch on though, which is Trey and you, and
Yes.
Dennis. Now you help dispensaries and brands go to market, grow their business, solve problems. I know from firsthand experience, some of the companies you've worked with, you've been able to help them weather storms and find success where they were previously not. Um,
hmm
what kind of A, how can people get a hold of you? And B, like how do you help people?
I I like to write people prescriptions at this point. I feel like after 10 years of touching all parts of the supply chain, I kind of come in, do a little audit, see what's working, see what's not working, all in the spirit of increasing your margin, increasing your revenue, cutting costs. Like those are the main goals I have. How we do that can be a garden variety of things. But that's my sweet spot. I'll do it with some of the operational stuff that I can do. I'll do it with some of the tech stuff that I can do. So I feel like I'm a pretty good generalist when it comes to like solving business problems, increasing revenue or cutting costs. You can get a hold of me. You can go LinkedIn. You can email me at Hannah at Ectray, which is such a fun email address, but I'll even, if I can put it in the chat, I can put it in the chat. The domain is ectra.ai. You're welcome. Um, yeah, and you can call me. I live in LA. I usually am in Missouri or somewhere in the country at least once a quarter. But yeah,
Great. Well,
cool.
thanks again for the time and wisdom. It was great to chat and
Yes,
see
I
you
had a great
again.
time. Thank you so much. It was
Yeah,
awesome. And thank you
great.
everybody for joining.
Yeah, thanks everyone. This has been another episode of Cannabis Marketing Live, and thanks for tuning in.